Recording is going. Okay, the tones are off. Okay, so I did the muting first. Okay, so we're set now. Okay, well, welcome everyone. I am so appreciative that we've been able to continue to come together to do these calls, because I really think that they certainly serve all of us as far as, getting us into a deep place where we can just clear, different things within us, but also just coming together as, that collective group as we do, going in with presence. Whenever you do the collective group, we can accomplish so much more as far as manifesting things for ourselves, for other people, for the world. And I think that's the biggest thing I think that we give to each other as a gift, that we've been able to continue with that. And thanks again to Judith for bringing us all together all these years. Again, some of us go all the way back. I guess Anna's probably the one that worked with Judith the longest, probably from the early 90s. So Judith is always here in spirit, of course. And she'll still pop in on dreams on occasion. So I know she's definitely working with me and guiding me with different things with spirit too. The spirit's really coming in, and that's one of the things that, so for anybody that just happens to, click on this call later, because I always put this up for YouTube recording for re-listening, this particular call is, for March 14th, of course, and it is the Virgo full moon total lunar eclipse. And so it's the first eclipse of this eclipse window. Eclipses always come in pairs, except for the rare times where they come in threes. But this window opened 2 weeks ago. The previous moon opens it before the first eclipse. Then we have the eclipse, and we have 2 weeks between the eclipses. We'll have the next eclipse on March the 29th. And then we'll actually have another closing moon series that will close out the eclipse window, which basically ends up being 6 weeks of time. And so really in those 6 weeks are the powerful, planetary shifts that take us from one reality to another. And, of course, everyone perceives them in different ways. So, there's always that challenge, or not. But it just depends on how we're creating our reality and how conscious we are, as far as our own creations. And one thing about this particular window with all of the energies that's really important, we are, because everything is at the end of, a lot of things are at the end of Neptune, going into Aries. Again, it's the alpha omega point part of creation. And these energies are not just right now. I mean, these are lasting for months and months on into next year. So know that whatever you're experiencing in this particular moment of time, it's a unique place for where you're at. But it's a continually changing window. It's a continually changing reality. It's always that way, but it's potent. This particular moment we're in is really, some people talk about it. I'm trying to remember if I mentioned it last time, but there was an interview with Barbara Hand Clow, and she used to write about the 2012 portals and things like that, but she did a recent one. I need to remember to send that to you guys. That'd be a good one to send, Joel. But she was talking about this particular time period, and a lot of them are talking about this too, where it really is ending the Kali Yuga age, which is 24,000 years. But they all talk about how this is really unprecedented as far as the different placement of planets. Neptune has not gone into Aries in 160-something years, I think. Saturn, of course, is 29-year patterns with that. But Uranus will be going in Gemini. Jupiter's going to change over into, I believe, Cancer. Pluto going into Aquarius. All the big hitters, going into different signs. But the two, Saturn and Neptune going into Aries, which is a completely new reality. And we've not had it in so long. And the energies are coming up to mirror where we were during the American Revolution, French Revolution. Of course, the energy does not have to play out that way again. If you look at where the consciousness was at that moment of time, obviously we were not as advanced technologically, or not, depends on who you're reading. I do think that technologies have been around for a long time, and what my feeling is that we've had a lot of it taken away from us, and we went through a deep forgetful period in the early 1900s. That's what I think. At the same time, I also think that we still were not as technically advanced as what's happening now, because I don't think the quantum field had really opened up back then at all. And they are starting to go into mainstream, talking about, bringing in quantum computing. They're dribbling it in, but obviously they've already been working on quantum computers for years. It's always the case, decades. They just do it in quiet until they're ready to bring things out. But with Pluto going into Aquarius and Neptune, which is the dreams, we're really birthing all of those things, and so I think we are going to have technological advances. But the biggest thing for us, I think, that we're doing is giving up the old self. And if you don't get anything else from these calls, I think the most important thing would be to, as you're sitting in your own heart, and no matter what's happening in your own life, you have to come from a place of who am I? Who are we individually, and then also collectively. But if you don't know who you are individually, you won't be able to start accentuating and creating reality in your deepest and highest expression, because you'll still be caught in old timelines and playing out all the habituated patterning. And again, it's not about a judgment, because we all have this. It's in the DNA. It has been programmed for, oh my gosh, so long, and so many storylines have progressed it for so long. But the big thing with all of this, there's a lot happening. I mean, Venus has gone into retrograde at the beginning of March, so we're 2 weeks into that. Mercury goes retrograde tomorrow, right here on this eclipse, and that's not a mistake. Mercury will retrograde like it always does for about 3 months. So it will retrograde until, I want to say it's April maybe the 7th or somewhere in there. But it will be retrograde for the entire eclipse window, the main 2-week period of the eclipse window. And that's no mistake. And the fact that Venus is retrograde during that period also is no mistake. The way we communicate with ourselves, but also with everyone externally, it's both. You have the inward journey and you have the outward journey. So everything that you're doing as far as the way you're communicating is up for review. That's every relationship. It's also your relationship to Mother, Father, God, however you perceive the vastness, the isness of the all that is, the spiritual, the very birth of where we all come from, whatever that is for you, that communication is front and center. That Neptune also rules deep spirituality in its highest essence. So that going into Aries really is, who are you as the divine? Who are you as an aspect of Mother, Father, God? That's why this is such a potent, in my opinion, creating point of our reality, because we're each doing it individually, but we're also doing it collectively. So it really is the place where we all can take our power back, because no matter what our experience of life, I mean, everybody's born at 8 billion people. And I say this every time, but I'm encouraged to always remind everyone, there are 8 billion unique expressions. Well, actually, there's even questioning of that now, as far as how many people are actually incarnated on the planet. I've often said this. It's like, who's doing that accounting? I've always said it for the United States, financial, system. Who's doing the accounting? Who's telling us that the debt is a certain amount? Who's telling us that this spending is this and that and whatever else? I mean, that's a lot of stuff to track. And it's also putting a lot of trust in someone that wants to spin a certain narrative for control. And it's always been the case. But I've been reading a lot lately. I've read this before, but they talk about how China has been inflating its population for a long time for a lot of reasons. And it could be true. Who knows? I've not been to China. I've not gone deeply into their stuff. And quite frankly, though, it really doesn't matter what their population is. The point is there's a certain amount of souls on the planet, and each soul has a very unique life path, a life journey, and a progression of soul. And so we're each in that space. At the same time, no matter how many of us there are, we're each having that moment of a come to Jesus session. We're each in a place where we get to face the totality of who we are as a spiritual essence of God, while also looking at the relationship we have with those that we love in our lives immediately, business, everything. So in this eclipse window, feel into where you are. If you're in a space where you're totally fine with your home, your family, friends, business, if nothing's out of order in your world, then you're not going to be looking necessarily to make a change. At the same time, you may be looking to make a change just because you want to change, and that's part of the Venus retrograde. Venus is what we love, what we value, how we perceive the world, how we value things in the world. All that's coming up for review. Also, again, individually and collectively. So if you look on a collective level, we're going through communication redos with Mercury, but also what we value, Venus, on a world stage. It's all being thrown up in the air. While at the same time, we've got Neptune at the end of 29th degree of Pisces. And actually, let me pull up my charting with this, because there were a couple things I wanted to really pay attention to. So yeah, we've got this eclipse window for Neptune is literally sitting at the end of 29 degrees. For today, it's at 29 and 23 degrees Pisces, and the midpoint will be 29:42 on March 22nd, and on the 29th, it's literally at the alpha omega point of 29 and 58 degrees. It's only 2 minutes away from going into Aries. That's about as big a deal as it can get. They always talk about the 29th being the anaretic degree, which is, again, it depends on the value you want to place on it. And I always try to remind people of this. This is part of where we're each taking our own power. Just because someone tells you there's a certain value to planets or something in your life or something in the world, that's their projection of their own, what they perceive the value to be. When you're taking your own power, you also get to decide what you want to place the value to be on things in your life. And that's really how we start to go into deep embodiment with Mother, Father, God, and we work as an aspect of presence. So, again, take all these things with a grain of salt, but they really have been very indicative, though, of what we're going through energetically. So we've got Neptune there at the end of Pisces, processing the last part of how we perceive the dream as an aspect of God before going into Aries, creating the new. That's literally where we're at right now in this very particular moment of time. And, as we go, oh, shoot, I need to do that. Okay. As we go then into Aries, Neptune's going to go into Aries on March the 30th. So it's the very next day. And it's going to stay there, let me see, I think it's all the way through July the 4th. Woo, fireworks. Won't that be a fun day? It makes its 2 degrees Aries, and it stations retrograde back for one last pass into Pisces. And it will go back then on October the 21st. And then we'll come back January 26th of next year. So there's, again, this is months. This is going all the way into next year, the way this is working. Saturn does the same thing. While all that's going on, though, the Mercury retrograde is in Aries, and it starts at 9 Aries, and it gets back to 0 degrees and 29 of Aries before going back into Pisces. And that's where it is on March the 29th, which is the second eclipse. So the Mercury retrograde is actually at the beginning degrees of Aries. So it's almost like it's taking us back into the core foundation of our I am presence. Who are we in the world? How do we see ourselves? How are we expressing ourselves at the very core foundation of who we are? It's from 0 to 9 degrees Aries. And so imagine that it's taking you back all the way to your core beginning, like is a whole life review is what I call it. And I've said this before. I feel like that this passage for the next year and a half or so is a bardo state. We're going in completely having to face the totality of everything we've ever thought, we've ever known, everything we've ever said, everything we've ever done. Imagine what that's like. And again, I remind people we've got a couple new people. In case you've not heard this before, a bardo state, according to Hindu tradition, it's like your recapitulation before you go back into God. As you leave the physical body here, the spirit's eternal. So the spirit gets to go back and review every nanosecond of decisions throughout the life path. And I've often said this. We're going through the bardo state while we're alive. That's what this feels like. And this alpha omega point is the death rebirth point. So we're always going through death and rebirth. On a cellular level, it's constant. We don't think of it that way, and we're not taught that in schools. We're not taught medically that. As a matter of fact, most doctors don't really think of it that way. I mean, although, well, they do, but they don't. They certainly don't talk to their patients that way. But the point is if we're always going through death and rebirth process, and we're always birthing something new, if you're unconscious in your birthing process, you will be bringing things into your reality through the cause-effect reality. It's like but we want to go in and clear out as much consciously as we can so that we're done with the karmic patterns. Now, a lot of the spiritual people are writing that karma is over with all of these types of energies and shifts and transformations. And it really could be true because, like Pam Gregory in some of the videos has said, and different ones, time really has collapsed. And this has been happening all the way since, I think, the Mayan calendar. And I may have mentioned this before. The Mayan calendar was supposed to end, 12 years ago. This year makes 13 years. 13, again, Christ consciousness. I think by the time we get to the end of this year, that's going to be that magic place where we may perceive ourselves in a completely different way going into next year. But, I mean, obviously the world did not end with the Mayan calendar in 2012. What did happen, though, is I feel it was the precipitation of the disintegration of the way that we perceive ourselves in the time-space continuum. And, again, I would also say that that's also what's happening with Neptune coming in, because Neptune is the dream or the delusion, while at the same time we've got the north nodes are going backwards into Pisces. The nodes are actually, this eclipse window is 27 and 23 Pisces. It's basically just sitting on that degree. During the nodes, they don't really move. So that's within 2 degrees of Neptune. Not to be left out, Venus meets up with Neptune on the 27th, 2 degrees before the second eclipse that we're about to have. And that's going to be a big deal. And let me see, where's Venus at the moment around myself? There's just so much changing right now. Let me go to the end of Pisces over here. Because Venus, let me see. Venus was at 25. Yeah, so she had moved forward, and she's I've got so much in these charts. I'm going to do a video on these charts pretty soon. Okay, here's it. Okay, she stations retrograde at 10 Aries. Yeah, so basically Venus and Mercury are retrograding kind of together. And that's another thing that they've talked about, is that's a very rare occasion for that to have also happened. So if you have planets anywhere from like maybe say 10, even up to 12 degrees, because you get a 2-degree orb of Aries, all the way back to 0 Aries or at the end of Pisces, you're really going to feel activated by something in your life right now. A lot of shift, a lot of upheaval. You're going to perceive yourself in just a completely different way, and you'll be invited to go in and engage yourself in a different way. Because this next eclipse window is actually going to be at 9 degrees Aries in 2 weeks on March 29th. So that's no mistake that Venus and Mercury have gone retrograde basically exactly on that spot. Well, Venus is actually at almost 11 degrees, but within 2-degree orb. I mean, they're retrograding at the point where the eclipse will be in 2 weeks. So that's a lot of powerful energy, and that's going to be a solar eclipse. And again, it's at 9 degrees is that Aries. It's, who are you? So these retrogrades are taking us back in, and then we're going to have the eclipse on that same place. And it's going to take you into the deepest depth of your heart and soul that you've ever gone into. I've forgotten about this one. Another planet being, actually it's more like a dwarf planet, I guess. And some people call it just an asteroid, but Psyche is another one. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. We talk about the psyche. Carl Jung has talked about the psyche. Psyche is going direct, but the eclipse window has it in the middle of the eclipse is at 8 degrees, which is basically on where the eclipse is going to be just a week later. So our psyche is also being activated. Today, Psyche is at 4 degrees Aries. Psyche represents, Psyche was partnered with Eros or with Cupido. So it's kind of like the feminine aspect of who we are in like the yin and yang, masculine and feminine energy. But I also think that there's something, and I've said this before, everything's a frequency. So the word psyche, when you hear psyche, I think it also has to do with our psyches, how we develop ourselves as a presence. And again, there are no coincidences. So, I think that that's a very pertinent thing that we have Psyche there during the eclipse window with Mercury and Venus. And again, I don't want to make this too astrological, but when we're explaining the energy, it's really important. The other thing to notate with this too, it's not pertinent for this particular window necessarily, but Neptune, when it gets into Aries next year, it's going to be retrograding back again. I think I said July the 4th, but it's going to be at 1 and 0 degrees of Aries on the next eclipse series on September the 7th through the 21st. So again, that's not a mistake. the eclipse of Neptune of this time is at the end of Pisces, but it's going to be retrograde in Aries all the way back to the 0 degree before going back into Pisces. That's going to take us back into a 0 degree of a sign is really just the complete beginning, especially Aries. It's the beginning of the zodiac. Everything begins at 0. And so that's also not a coincidence. It's also the other reason I wanted to bring it up is to show you how big of a deal this is. Because, I mean, you've got Neptune right now at the end of Pisces, which is the death. The next Neptune eclipse series in 6 months is going to be in Aries at the beginning, but it's retrograding back into Pisces. So again, this is this energy that's going to keep us going back and forth. If you look at it in the mundane world, it's going to keep taking you back and forth into how you create reality. It's the dream. So it's a lot of chance for review. It's a lot of chance for going more deeply into your heart. But at the highest aspect, though, Neptune represents the divinity. It represents the I am consciousness as presence of God. So again, there's no mistake in this, and this is one of the reasons why all the astrologers say this is we've not had this in, well, with Neptune 160 years as far as being at the beginning of the zodiac. At the same time, Mars placements have been very challenging. If you look in the external world, Mars is aspecting, all of these things, and creating a lot of just what's a mess. Again, do not attach to form, anything out there in the world of form. Just observe it. And I know that's really difficult to do sometimes if you watch the news all the time. And you've got the mainstream media. They're presenting a narrative. The narrative has been planned by the Rothschilds for eons of time, but especially in the last century. I mean, that's why the media was created. That's why the Associated Press was created. All I'll say, it's a collective narrative. Observe it. They'll present what they present out. Even in alternative media, though, take everything with a grain of salt. Do not attach to anything that's being put out into the world. This is going to be really important. Each one of us are birthing a new reality. We're also taking our power. Part of taking your power is how to be here now without getting caught up in the world. It's called being in the world but not of the world. You are not of all the trauma drama unless you choose to be. That's always your choice. It always has been our choice. At the same time, it also brings us to a place of how do we create and activate something for ourselves in this world of chaos that can have staying power, something that's going to make us better people, make us feel like we are contributing something to the world around us in a positive way. How can we feel empowered when the external world has the appearance and indeed is in the reality of disintegration? And all of the above is true. We have to go through the deep disintegration before we can go into the higher new creation. I mean, it's that phoenix coming out of what gets torn apart. The main thing is to look at what is being torn apart in your life, if there is anything indeed. I mean, some people, will not be hugely activated if these transits and things are not activating something within your chart. You're not necessarily going to feel the energy. You'll be in observance of things in your life, people in your lives that are going through this as a visceral, experiential, type of thing that's happening to them. Because, I mean, for some people, this is going to bring literally some of the most profound change that we've ever seen. And for some people, it will be like, oh, it's just another day. And indeed, there are many souls that came here, they're not having to go through and clear a lot of deep karmic debt. And I think I've said this before too, when you look at larger souls that are presented out into the field through celebrity or through either through the political arena, through big business, whatever. Some souls came here to do things on big scales. They came here to be in a very oversized expression with their energy fields. Again, everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to be doing. Whether we look at it as saying, God, why is that allowed to happen? Again, this is a free will universe. Every soul came back here to play out exactly what they're doing. Some souls are playing much bigger as far as the energy that they came here to work with, because they came here with a lot of stuff they had to clear out. Again, I mean, it's all over the map as far as what we each come here with as an energetic and ancestral inheritance. So if we can look at the external world in that way, I think it can give us a lot more peace. Because if you know that everyone is playing out whatever they're supposed to be doing, and I really do think that that's true, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy on us, either economically or, looking at how do we meet our needs in the world of form if the form is constantly changing. Again, do not get caught up in any of the political drama. Don't get caught up in banking drama. You may say, I've got a lot of money in the stock market. Well, stocks have come and gone for years. Just let it ride through. Now, does it mean that you're not going to potentially take losses? I have no idea what this looks like. Again, we've never been through this type of energy like this. We've never had the placements. Because another depth to this energy, too, is we've had Chiron going back through Aries since 2018. For those that are new to this call, unless you're familiar with Chiron, Chiron is it's the individual wound, the deep wound that every human being is born with. It's a certain wound. It expresses itself uniquely depending on, again, your genetic inheritance, your ancestral inheritance, your karma from past life experience. But there's also the collective wounding, and that's also part of what's being cleared out. Now, Chiron has already advanced up into Aries, further on up. Let me see, Chiron, I think it's already into like 20, it's coming up to 25 degrees now. So it's in 25, 26 degrees. Now, here's the point I will make with that. So you've got Chiron and Eris. Eris is also, that really slow-moving planet of discord. I mean, she moves way slow. She's at 24 degrees during this eclipse series in Aries. So Eris, was always, as the discord. She was, shunned. I mean, she has to come in and she's not satisfied with a lot of things because she's always been shunned. She's always been, there's something about Eris taking her power, but it's also course correcting where she sees things in the external world that are not up to their highest potentiality. That's the higher form of Eris. But Eris and Chiron are sitting together. So she's working with Chiron, working with the collective wounding. And Chiron's going to go back over where Eris is through a retrograde and then also come back again. So Chiron is going across Eris at this point 3 times this year. That's a big deal. So it's like when you're dealing with the individual wound, the collective wound, this could activate, you or family or friends in such a way where if you have been in a place like with relationships with family, friends, it doesn't matter who it is, but if someone has been creating a wound for you, if someone has wounded you, if somebody has overpowered you. If there's any kind of dynamic like that, you could be aspected where you're going to have a discord over it. You're no longer going to tolerate that type of wounding. It's like you're taking your power, because all of this is happening in the later degrees of Aries. Aries is the I am presence. And all of that is in a wide orb semi-sextile to all of this stuff happening in Pisces. So that means all this energy is working together. Semi-sextiles, they're kind of challenging energies. I mean, sextile is more flowing. Semi-sextile is kind of not so much. I mean, some astrologers explain a semi-sextile in that the energy doesn't see each other because it's right next to each other in sign. So that could provide some challenges, depending on where you're at with Neptune, your north node, where you're going, the Venus, Mercury retrograde, the sign right next to it. You could have Eris and Chiron working all this whole year. You could have a lot of discord, wounds, whatever. It could be blindsided by the stuff happening in Pisces. So it's the other reason that I say this is really the next year. It's like the Bardo state. It's like we're having to face the totality of everything we've ever been, and we're going to come out the other side, I have a feeling, by the end of next year when the nodes go into Aquarius, because the nodes go backwards. But it's a year and a half, 18 months to go through a sign, and they just started in January. That will have a chance to be done. Neptune and Saturn will be finally into Aries completely by, May or June next year. But we'll really be in the new dream by that point. So this really is it's a birthing canal also, though, while we're also going through the death process. But at the same time, Judith has always said, when we're going in stuff, you can't give away something you don't own. And Spirit tells me individually or collectively. And I've said that several times in these calls, but I keep getting told to reiterate that, because we do have the where we are individually, but as a collective consciousness, and Spirit, has often, reminded me to tell everybody, you're part of several collective consciousness. You've got your group, whatever groups you're part of. It could be, schools. It could be your community. It could be a state, nation, whatever. It doesn't matter what the group is. But if there are places within each of the groups, this especially for nations, if there's a place where the nation hasn't faced its crap, it's going to have to face itself, because you can't give away something you don't own. And this is part of the Pluto return in the United States. The United States has to face the totality of the creations of the last 248 years, since the Constitution was written in 1776. That's when the energy initiates itself. So these growing pains are not going to come lightly. There's a lot of decisions that people have made on behalf of the United States that most of the people in the United States that have lived all these years would never have agreed to. And that's what's going to be complicated, not just for the United States, but for many nations, because you've had people that are in charge of countries making decisions for those countries. And again, these have been controlled decisions from well above them. I won't get into all that today, but the point is there's also collective karma for nations, because nations have beginning points when they are, when they come together and they initiate themselves as a nation. Cities have that, states have it. So there's different energies that work out through astrology in that particular way. There's also something called astrocartography, meaning that depending on where all these planets hit the Earth, the energy is going to activate those points on the Earth even more powerfully. So if there's some really challenging aspects, where these eclipses fall, and this eclipse series right now is falling across all of North, Central, and South America. That's not a mistake. I feel that that's what's happening because a lot of people that are here in the Americas, basically we're trying to go through and reclaim ourselves from the fall of Atlantis. That's what my deepest feeling is. It's not just the Atlantean past lives that we have, that we're bringing forth, but it's one of the biggest things that we're trying to overcome. And so, again, on a collective level, I think we're going through a collective Bardo state. So it could feel challenging in the United States, I think, for the next year and a half. Again, do not look at the world of form. It does not matter that it's a Donald Trump. If you like Donald Trump or don't like Donald Trump, that's not even the point. The point is there's collective energy that has to be worked through in every single nation. I don't know what that's going to look like. Germany has had some challenging times, in the last 100 years. England, France, Russia, the Middle East. It doesn't matter where you're at on the planet. When you look at the geopolitical situation of the last, 250 years, which is the Pluto return, each one of those nations are going to have a lot of karma that has to be cleared. So try not to look at the narrative just, from the place of the United States. Yes, we're having the Pluto return, but anything else that was created in that time is also having the return. Even if places are not having a return, they're still being aspected by Pluto. Pluto in Aquarius, it's a worldwide thing. It's a cosmic thing. Pluto is, death, rebirth, transformation, and no one gets away from it. Aquarius it's that Aquarian energy. They've talked about it for my entire life. So, I just don't know what all this is going to look like as it plays itself out. And that's one thing we're just going to be looking at. But the reason I bring the, Chiron and Eris up is because Chiron is the individual and collective wounding. And again, for the second, the eclipse series coming up in the fall, it's going to be at 26 degrees Aries, which is even closer to this point of where things are happening in this spring eclipse. And the other thing that's going to be interesting about that time period, Saturn will be at the end of Pisces during that eclipse time. It will at that point, it will be where Neptune is now at the 29th degree. Saturn's the work we come here to do individually and collectively. So it's the taskmaster. Saturn also represents time. So if Saturn in the eclipse is at the 29th degree of Pisces before going into that alpha mega point going into Aries, perhaps the Saturn eclipse window is going to feel like it's actually retrograded back into Pisces. I forgot to see that. Yep. So it's going back into Pisces to finish itself before going into Aries. So I think that's when we're also going to feel like the time-space continuum will be different next year. Let me see when it goes back. Let me see. Saturn will actually, let me see, its sign changes. It goes in May 25th of this year for the first time in Aries, goes back on August 31st of this year, and it makes it back on February the 13th. So by the beginning of next year, January and February, both Neptune and Saturn will be in Aries for the final time. And it's at that point when we're really going to feel like we're in the new dream, but also time will feel different as well. Because, again, Neptune, the dream, also how we perceive ourselves in the highest form of divine expression as Mother, Father, God. But when time is also there, it's going to feel different. I think we're going to feel like we're in a totally different place. The other thing that I also noticed when I was going through this chart stuff that I'd had, when I placed asteroids in for the January 29th new moon that we had, that's when I told you it really was it was the first new moon of this year that was really initiating us into all this new stuff. But at 0 degree Aries, the asteroid Israel was sitting on that degree. So, again, you can't make this stuff up. Israel being at the 0 degree of Aries with all of this energy, I think it's one reason that Israel's been put front and center. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that, it's been written in Bible prophecy for, years and presented, that there's something about the way that energy has been playing out. And I also found that was also interesting. Anyway, but again, there's so much happening with all of this. And those are just the energies between Pisces and Aries, of course. Now, not to be left out by that, but let me see. What was in Taurus? Oh, yeah. So in Taurus, that's going to be sextiling energy. All this Neptune energy is sextiling, which is a positive energy. It's more of a flowing energy, workable. But it's really sextiling the Pleiades. The Pleiades, back when I was born 50 years ago, were took up the whole 29 degrees of Taurus. Taurus is grounding. It's very earthy. But the Pleiades, when you listen to a lot of the people that channel the Pleiadians and all these different things, it's more of like a more high spiritual kind of presentation. But the Pleiades have moved mostly into Gemini. The star systems do move over time. They move very much a slower path. But there's only 3 stars that are left in the Pleiades that are at the end of Taurus. We've got Electra, Solano, and Taygeta. But so the Pleiades are straddling the Taurus-Gemini line. And I think that's a very pertinent point that the Pleiades are working with through positive energy, all these Neptune and energies at the end of Pisces. The other thing to not be left out is Uranus. Uranus has been going through Taurus for all of last year and this year. We had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which was a big deal after the eclipse last year in April. That was at 21 degrees Taurus. But this year, Taurus for the eclipse window is at 24 degrees, 24:02 to 24:39. That is basically sextiling where Saturn is going to be this fall. And it's also where Neptune was last year, but it's coming up on the area where Neptune is, coming up now. On May 4th, Uranus is going to be sitting on Algol. Algol is the star of the beheading. It's the fixed star that people say there's a lot of fall from grace for presidents, for state heads. It's very challenging energy. It doesn't have to be. There are some positive aspects that can be aspected with it too, but it's at 26 degrees Taurus. And that's really sextiling where the North Node is during this eclipse series. But Uranus is going to hit that energy in May. And so it would not surprise me. Uranus is shock. Uranus is, extreme shift, change out of the blue. I think there's going to be a lot of shocking departures at that time. We'll see how that works out. But it's also basically the same place where Uranus was during the eclipse series of September, October last year. So I don't think that's a mistake. So I wanted to bring in that energy. But as a general rule, it's going to be sextiling, so those energies are much more, workable. Let me see. Squaring energies, there's not really a lot of squaring energy from Gemini because there's not a lot happening there. Trining energy in Cancer. Let me see. I guess there wasn't nothing of note there. Actually, Judith's last name and my first name asteroids are there, so we're at the end of Cancer working around. As a matter of fact, Pam Gregory's last name is playing with Judith's first name and my last name. My first name comes up to it in July. So that's why I know that our energies are interspersed because the asteroids, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, they're sitting there dancing together. Mercury's coming across there in June. I mean, they're all sitting like on exact degrees together coming up in June. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, for future stuff. But let me see. I don't really see anything in Leo. Virgo, of course, is the opposite. That's where the south nodes are. There's not really a lot being aspected in Virgo particularly. So that's a good thing. So south node is the past of where we've been. Individually and collectively, so that's a good thing. Let me see, Scorpio. Juno is coming across in Scorpio, so Scorpio is going to be. Let's see, I think that's trining energy. I get confused on these things. I think it's Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. So that's trining energy. That's workable energy. So anything partnering with Juno, I think that's going to be assisting us. And Juno is going to be going direct through that area on February. February to, actually it's gone into, let me see, where's Juno? Okay, it had gone in Sag. So it was there for the beginning of February, but it's going to come back through. Well, it retrograded through and goes back. Yeah, it's back and forth through that area. So partnering can have some positive aspects coming and going between now and then. Pluto has left Capricorn, so at least Pluto is not going to be in a hard aspect to any of this at the moment. Anyway, so that's kind of what's going on astrologically. But again, there's just the astrologers talk about this being just an unprecedented energy, and it really is true. And again, this is going to look very unique for each of us depending on our sets of circumstances. As far as what we're going and what we're doing and experiencing. Also, Ceres is, about nurturing, a lot of grains and stuff like that. They talk about, and that's going from Pisces into Aries, like around May. And so it's going to be coming through here with this passing the Eclipse series, in May 12th. So there's a lot of that energy I think is going to help and assist with, like a deep mother nurturing kind of energy too. I guess that's all the bigger things astrologically that I wanted to point out. But the biggest thing to know from all of this is we've never lived through these particular types of shifts. It's been a very long time since we've done this. And so, again, to tie in with our own soul progression, it's really important as we are each going into our own individual observation of life, but also through the soul progression, what do you want to create? Because it really is a very powerful moment of time. And as much as you can stay in a blissful state, if you can stay, this is a lot of what Pam talks about. So when I hear Pam talk about these things, that all sounds wonderful. at the same time, and she's later years in life. I think she's in her 70s, maybe early 70s now, maybe late 60s. I don't remember. But the point is, she's in a later progression of life. I mean, I can't imagine her parents are still alive. They could be. I don't know. She's never really mentioned. But the point is, she's already gone through like a second Saturn return. So she's already gotten to a place where she's, in those later years where she may not have as much place where she's got soul agreements that have to continue to be played out. And I say that for this reason. A lot of people write from, high spirituality and this and that. Oh, it's all love and light. Well, it always is. And yet we're still here in this third dimensional world. We either have jobs, we're paying mortgages, we've got kids, we've got grandkids, we've got parents, we've got all these other dynamics that you just can't walk away from. Yes, it'd be nice to say, oh, I'm going to create my reality over here. I don't want anything awful in my life. Well, I don't get to walk away from two great aunts and a dad, that are all in aging process. I've still got to deal with doctors, and I've got to deal with dementia, on different ones coming into different levels and layers of that. I mean, they've got physical ailments. We've got surgeries we're going to have to deal with. We've got all these things that are, it's like they are where they are in the progression of the souls, and that's challenging, But we each have, and it doesn't matter who listens to this. There's always going to be some dynamic that we have to engage in life with, and it certainly does not feel like a very magical creation, and yet we always have to have. It's always a choice, So it's like, how do we maintain and create our new world for ourselves, but also fulfilling soul contracts that are there, because you just can't turn off soul contracts. Some people yes, you always do have a choice, but at what point? Let's say we chose to walk away from a soul contract. What happens in the bigger scale of that decision? And I think that's what a lot of people don't really contemplate. As we're sitting and contemplating life decisions, if you walk away from a job, what does that look like? Does it leave an unleft residue, like a karmic residue of something that's unresolved? Is there, when you leave a home, when you leave a place, is there something left undone or unsaid? And I don't think that we really necessarily contemplate those things sometimes. We're in the immediacy of a moment, and we make a decision. And for better or worse, the decision gets made. The main thing is to know whether or not we've left an energetic trail that still has to be dissipated or has to go through transmutation. And I've worked with Judith on this stuff for years, either through myself and also with other people, with our workshops and groups we've all done. We've all talked, pretty freely about things in most of our lives, I think. And of course, she's worked with people one-on-one in deeper aspects of things. But in the few people I worked with her, in personal sessions with, you always want to look and make sure when you're allowing something to fall away that you don't hold a polarity with regards to what it is you're walking away from. You really want to go in and do the deep, deep work on that to release it in just the deepest the deepest level of neutrality that you can, because it's like okay, energetically, everything, you've got electrons, protons, neutrons, all these kinds of things. If you look at the way your body processes food, you have neutrons and protons. I forget how it all works, but the point is, a lot of the materials that we eat today create free radicals. Free radicals are literally told that that's what really destroys a lot of our body, because there's not something that they can molecularly bond with. So the body is sitting here carrying around all of these, leftover electronic material that it can't pair with. And so I think it's one of the reasons we end up with high dementia, especially in the brain cells. Because, the body cannot metabolize most of the crap that's put into our world. And I say that for this particular reason. So that's the physicality of things in our life that we're ingesting. If you look at things just as pure energy, and everything is energy, again, electrons, protons, neutrons, that's the physicality of it, but they also hold a place energetically. And you don't want a place where, if you're making a conscious decision, or let's say it's an unconscious decision, if you leave an energy, let's say that you have an energy, an emotional energy that would end up being a free electron or a free radical. And let's say you have a free radical group that is sitting in the pancreas, or you have a free radical group sitting in the lymphatic system, and it's merging in unprocessed emotion with some of the other stuff of the free radicals from the physical poisoning that we get, from food supplies or, healthcare supplies, or something you're breathing in the air. But all of those things add together is a workable block. So you have the energetic blocks, you have mental blocks. Let's say, for instance, you're observing the world of form and you're watching the news, and you're really pissed because you don't like Donald Trump doing this or this or this, or you don't like, now I want to pick on Donald Trump. It could be anyone. It could be someone in your business you work with that does something that really aggravates you. And you've communicated something, you can't change it. The question is, do you carry a mental thing in your mind where your mind always gets drawn to that particular thing you don't like? And you may say, well, that's nitpicking on something, but is it? If there's any place in your life that you're stuck, and that would be a stuck place, we have to come to a point where we release every single thing that comes up. You don't hold anything. You don't want to carry it. If you end up carrying all of this stuff, it adds to the baggage you have to haul around. So, and again, this happens on every level of the body. It happens the mental body, the emotional body, the spiritual body, and it ends up in the physical. You also don't want it to be sitting there and contaminating the divine blueprint. Now, your divine blueprint, you can't mess that up. But at the same time, you can weigh down an area within your divine expression that can't move forward because of the baggage you carry from the mental, emotional, spiritual, or the physical. So all of these things are working in tandem. And the further you are along in the progression of your soul is going to obviously mean potentially higher challenges, because as you go through the life path, if you continue to collect all this stuff, the gradu, as Jude would call it, it ends up being baggage that you carry. You want to go in and transmute all of that. And that's one of the things that, whether we've been conscious of it or not, we've really been doing on these calls, is releasing all of that stuff. And so consciously, when you're working with this, like when we're in these calls, I always ask you to think about anything you want to put on the fire. It's kind of like when we pull in and go into that deep meditation, sit and ask yourself, what would you give to God? What would you say, God, please transmute this. I don't want to carry this anymore. What would you say, Saint Germain and the Violet Flame, please put this into the highest transmutation. I want to dissolve this. And again, the violet flame can transmute that. And so that's consciously working with your genetic inheritance, within this lifetime anyway, your co-created miscreation. Let's call it the miscreations of this lifetime. But you can also do that for previous lifetimes, things you may not be aware of that come in as a blind spot. So that's really what we're invited to do in this eclipse window. It's so funny. I'm sitting here, and I know I've talked about a lot of different things. I can't even track what I've talked about. I have no idea what I've even said to you. It's so funny. I go into these modes, and I just start talking because Spirit just says whatever needs to be said. It's so bizarre. Anyway, but that's kind of the gist of where we are in this. And again, we've always talked about these eclipse things as a window. It's a sideways elevator, some people call them, where you go into another reality. Imagine this is it's a wormhole, and it's going to take you to a completely different place. And this eclipse is the beginning of the wormhole. The next one's the ending of the wormhole. But the big magical part of the wormhole is right now for 2 weeks. So if there's anything you're not happy with, ask Spirit to show you how to shift it. More importantly, believe this. It's already shifted. There's no work to do. Let something come into your conscious awareness and let it be known that a second later it's gone. It doesn't exist. It never existed. In truth, none of that exists. The only reason that anything continues to exist is because we continue to insist that it exists. There are no problems, technically, if we really go to the core of it in that way. Doesn't matter who's out there. There's all sorts of political boogeymen, and there's business people. They're going to project their values on you. They're going to project all sorts of strangulations and control, greed, manipulation. Doesn't matter. We're each going to be going into. It may feel like a diamond mine, or like a minefield. Like we're going to be walking on, in between a booby trap here and a booby trap there, worried about, older people, they worry about Social Security, what's going to happen with this, what's going to happen. Do not project worry into your reality. We are such powerful creators. If you sit in worry, you're bringing that experience to yourself. And some people say, oh, that's just mental. Nope. If you're deeply immersed in your heart and you're creating miraculous shifts, and you know that you can create a side of the world of form, it's like when you're deeply immersed with Spirit, you let Spirit deliver to you. Don't go chase. Don't go chase anything ever again. To be participative in your own life. What does that look like? It's both. It's listening grace. It's working with Mother, Father, God. So deeply immersed in your heart that you always feel like you're on the right track without getting caught up by somebody else's story. Donald Trump is someone else's story. I will also say this. It doesn't matter what side of any politics you're on. If you go deep enough and look at this, there's always been a core group of people at the top that control everything. The Rothschilds, for the last at least 100+ years, have funded both sides of wars because it's a huge moneymaker. And if they can keep people fighting each other, then you won't be paying attention to what they're doing behind your back. All the politicians, every single country operate this way. You've got the left side and the right side. They polarize the visions so that people have something to fight about. Oh, I don't agree with that. And so people are sitting there constantly locked in debate. That ties up all of your mental capacities, well, not all of them. Obviously, you're doing stuff in your own life, but imagine how much of your mental world is tied up in the political arena. Imagine how much of your emotional field is tied up in the political arena. Imagine how much of your spiritual self is tied up in the political arena. They present out little nuggets that get you hooked. It doesn't matter what it is. If you go in and look at anything that is being talked about through the mainstream media, through television, news, radio, it doesn't matter what it is. That's all projection. If you get caught up in the projection, it doesn't mean that you're not heart-centered, because you think your heart is attempting to defend something that you feel needs defending. And indeed, there's many things in the world that need defending. Certain things you will have power to change, and you'll know when you have power to change. There's some things that you will not have power to change. And I say that for this reason. There's so much of the world that is upside down. The external world of form that we see is upside down. Things that you thought would be real are not real. When you look at the medical world, the medical world is one of the most bizarre things that's totally upside down. Used to, medical facilities existed through charity. They existed through, people coming together and saying, "Oh, we need a hospital to, fix people and things." And doctors got into the field for that particular reason. When the mafia took it over, basically for money and control through insurance and everything else, they started controlling everything and started managing your health care. And if you look at all the pharmaceuticals that are projected out now, there's multi-billions and trillions of dollars created in pharmaceuticals. Most of that's in the United States. And if you mix all of those things together, they become a lethal cocktail. So it feeds the medical complex. If you look at the people in the medical field, medical is supposed to be health. They're not healthy. They're not the embodiment of health when they walk around. They're sitting there as they're parts of a machine. It's well, I would say a well-oiled machine, but it's not really that well-oiled. It's really a behemoth of a mess is what it is. But they're so indoctrinated into the system, and they don't know any different. And when you go into the deep hypnosis, again, everything is hypnosis, and you become hypnotized in a certain way of being, then you forget your normal way of health. And that's what's happened to most people in this country. You have mental health, you have emotional health. But the mental health gets skewed because you have so many people that are, quote, indoctrinating you through higher education, through all these other things, into believing a certain thing is true. And it's gotten to the point where no one knows what's true in the medical world anymore. And when you have doctors that all they want to do is push a pill onto you, you have to question the integrity of the individual. Spirit takes me into this, and I've been going into this for the last few years, but really deeply. I try to stay in this place all the time. This is the place. Can I create whatever it is I'm creating in this moment where I never, ever create anything that hurts another person, place, or thing on the planet ever again? And I look at everything I'm doing, and I ask myself that question for whatever it is. Whatever it is I'm thinking about, whatever it is I'm doing. If every single human being asked themselves that every moment, if you stayed in that space, how many people would have to walk away from their jobs? This is a big deal. Spirit's having me project this out to you now as a reflection, and whoever listens to this later in life, it doesn't matter when you listen to it. I've often said this as well. As we go through this reality, what is an eternal truth? And what is a momentary truth? Momentary truth comes up and it brings us to some revelation, and we wake up and we move forward and we move away from something. That's a momentary truth. Eternal truth is something that's always true no matter when it's articulated. Doesn't matter what year, what decade, what century, it's an eternal truth. So how many eternal truths can you take yourself into? Sure, there'll be a momentary truth of something that comes up and you reflect on it and say, oh my gosh, I don't need to do that anymore. But if you reflect on your own life and say, am I doing anything that hurts someone else physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? And how do I change that behavior and let that go? Or if it's something that you're paid to do, can you change your job description where you no longer have to do the things that would be a distorted creation? If you're doing something that goes against someone or something else. So then you can also look at your life as what is a distortion. Are you creating something that's distorted? And that's a whole another ball of wax. Because then you have to ask yourself, how do you define the distortion? What is a distorted reality? If you look at the external world of form we're living in, much of it is a distortion. The political system is a distortion. The banking system is a distortion. It's a control manipulation. They use it through currencies, different currencies around the world. But all of those things only exist because we collectively agree that they exist. They don't exist. I'm telling you they don't exist. Whether you choose to know they don't exist, and that's easy for me to say because we still need to pay, either rent or, insurances, and utilities, food, whatever. You need that's the system that's operating. But what if going deeper into your heart, you become a Christic energy field and you're in more flow, and so you have more positive flow in your life with people, places, things, and you allow more distortions, whatever things are a distortion of your life, people, places, and things, you allow them to fall away. Again, don't attach to any single thing, person, place, anything on the planet. Detach from everything and see what stays, especially in this eclipse window. If you ever really thought about a time when you would make a change in your life as far as what you thought's important, this eclipse window is the time. This is when you're really working with all the planetary energies in divine alignment with your own soul expression to say, do I really need this anymore? Do I need this person anymore? Again, this is going to feel tricky sometimes because if we're in a place where we are immersed, and there's always the entanglement. That's the entanglement. We are in soul contracts with people within our lives. Sometimes you will be called through your heart to relieve yourself of a soul contract. Sadly, though, there are many of us that have created situations where we literally are a lifeline for other people's souls. It's like they couldn't exist without us. Somehow I've ended up creating two of those for myself that don't really see anybody else on the planet except for me. Another one has some other people, some family members, but I'm still having to be a main force for balancing that individual's life out. And all three of these individuals are at the end of life time periods. They're not dying tomorrow necessarily. They could. But when you're dealing in that type of dynamic, again, you have to just stay in your heart. You have to ask yourself what's true for that moment, and you ask Spirit to work with the other soul on transitioning, whatever that transition is. It may be transitioning out. But again, you have to take great care that you don't project a value onto the other soul contract. And that's really true for every individual relationship that we're in. If you're a helicopter parent or a grandparent and you're attempting to control and manipulate your parent or grandchild's lives, is there some energy where you are taking away the free will choice of the advancement of the soul, of the soul progression? When you go in and you constantly want to steer people into something based on your own personal wants or needs or your own programming. And again, don't beat yourself up for it. We're conditioned to do that. We're conditioned to think that we know best. And we do. At least we've got the experiential. At the same time, though, when do we guide other souls, and when do we just open doorways for them to go in and learn on their own how to move forward? Spirit's presenting all of this to me. Again, this is a very powerful eclipse window. As I hear these things come out of my mouth, I'm like, wow, boy, I haven't considered that really, or I haven't thought of that. It's why I just get out of the way and let Spirit just come through with whatever needs to be brought forth. And again, you don't want to tie everything up just to astrology, but the astrology can certainly lead us into, again, depending on your capacity of awareness, what does it open up the doorway for you to create? And again, really powerful 0-point energy. So do focus as much as you can on what you want to create for yourself. Take care that you're not attempting to micromanage someone else's life path too much. Now, if you've got people that, if they're older and that are having, challenges with, make decision making and where they want to go, what they want to do, sometimes you have to assist with that a little bit more. And again, that's progression of our own souls. And we're going to be going continually into more micron level work. It's going to be we've done so much big level work, but we're going into such deep refinement, and that's part of what I think this next Eclipse series is taking us into for the next, especially into next year, January through probably April next year. I think we're going into deep refinement. How do we perceive ourselves in the deepest micron as aspects of God? How do you go in and own every single micron of your being? I know that's pretty deep, huh? Again, this is not things we're trained into, and we're certainly not going to learn that in the educational system. And again, when you listen to anything in the external world, they're going to take apart the Department of Education. They're going to take apart this. They're going to allow that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. Some of the people that are leaders currently in places, they will not necessarily be the people that build the new earth. They're not going to necessarily be the people that take us to the higher expression of what's going to be built. Some souls came here. This is part of the soul contract. They came here literally to participate in the destruction. Know that every soul is playing its part in whatever it's doing. I mean, we could sit there and project values onto it. We could sit there, but you don't want to be the polarity. You don't want to be the best of 3D. Control what you can, but release the rest. And really, we have no control over any of it. But we're going through such a complete disintegration, individually and collectively. And I've said this the last couple times. You cannot build something new on the foundation of distortion. And so much of our reality is built on distortion. We have to go back to complete 0 point. That's what Neptune and Saturn are doing by going back and forth between Pisces and Aries. And again, this goes all the way into next year. So it's going to ask patience of every single person. But please don't get caught up into the form. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do. And some people will say that, well, by not acting on something or not taking a stand on something, you're not taking your power. Yes and no. It's both. And this is where it really gets tricky on a soul level. If you're in a place where you know something is hurting people, I think it's incumbent for us to share what we know without necessarily trying to ram it down someone else's throat. I think it's one thing to invite someone to consider another point of view. Now, many people are not going to consider points of view because this energy right now, this is the other thing that the astrologers have really talked about. Actually, Kathy Beal mentioned I've got to send you that one too. Her video for today was talking about people are going to be so deeply immersed in their opinions and what they think is right and wrong. And it's almost like everyone's going to want to be picking for a fight. And it's like you have to pick and choose your battles as far as what you want to share with other people if you think it's going to be worthy of sharing. A lot of people are not going to be in a frame of reference to hear it. And this is the other thing. I'm getting reiterated again on this. This one's really powerful. And it's going to be huge between this year and the next year. It has to do with that perception of betrayal. And I say that because there's some people on this call that were not on the last call. So we have this idea of, oh, someone betrayed me. So, again, everything is a mirror reaction, and everything is about when you're coming, looking at something, what angle are you looking at it? Are you looking at it as the observer, or are you looking at it as the person that got perpetrated on? So betrayal is a very interesting dynamic that has been projected onto us as a value. We have a reality that we're in. We have relationships we're in, many different kind of relationships. It can be your family, friends, kids, grandparents, whatever, your friends, just immediate neighborhood, could be business acquaintances. But this happens a lot in business. It happens in actually personal as much as business, but especially in the business world. You have this idea, well, somebody did something and then betrayed you because they changed and did something beyond what they said that they were going to do or what you thought they had agreed that they would do. So then they act out something completely different. It's almost like they're in another reality, but it betrays you because it's not something that was agreed. So on a bigger picture, who betrayed who? If this person has always acted out that way and you just chose not to observe this about them, then they are always acting out who they are. Believe someone when they tell you who they are, because I assure you that's the truth. If they do another action to someone else all the time, but it just now comes around to you, you think, oh, they've never done that to me before. Why would they do it to me? Did they betray you, or did you betray yourself by choosing to be in relationship with someone that you already saw their behavior? Betrayal is a trick question for all of us. Now, that's on the personal level. There's also collective betrayal. These things have played out through eons of time, through political groups, through nationalities, through tribes. Again, what is betrayal? How many politicians have made decisions in which information continues to come out daily, actually hourly sometimes, and how many of those people are going to feel betrayed by their politicians? Either things that they knew the decisions were made, that a politician made, and they just allowed it to happen, or things that were hidden and weren't put out publicly. there's going to be a lot of perceived betrayal between this year and into next year. How you perceive the betrayal is going to be unique up to you as a soul progression. If you were in reaction to anything in the external world of form, the reaction is yours. It is not theirs. The reaction is the depth of your own progression of soul work that you're doing in this particular moment of time. We don't want to be in reaction. Now, some people have asked, well, what's the difference between reaction and being pissed off at something because you know that shouldn't be something that happens? And there's a fine line between the distinction of that. Because there's a heartful response as opposed to reaction. A heartful response would be something where you are observing the external world. It may be something that hits within your immediate sphere. But you stay in your heart while you're in that moment, and you ask yourself what's true. And you give a heartful response. A reaction is a knee-jerk reaction to something. So someone will say or do something to you, and you immediately react to them without necessarily going into your heart and saying, And you'll know the difference if after you've gone through something with someone, if you're reflecting on your life later in that evening or next day or whatever, and you question it and say, I really could have done that differently. That is a place where your soul is going through, and at least you have the capacity to self-review. And that's a great place to be. At least you know you're not, better than this one or that one or whatever else, but you at least have the capacity to go back and review. And then you can course correct. You can say, I want to apologize for this or that, whatever else. At the same time, sometimes people don't give you a choice but to remove yourself immediately from a circumstance. And that sometimes is very necessary. You don't ever want to stay in some place where people are disrespecting your soul on a core level. There's never any excuse for that. At the same time, and here's the caveat to this, and I've said this before, but it's really true. If you walk away from a situation or circumstance with someone, you want to be sure that you got the lesson. Because if you didn't get the lesson, if the energy is still within you, if it's an unworked with energy or something that you haven't mastered, you're going to create the energy in a new relationship. This is crucial right now in this eclipse period. If you are going to walk away from a relationship or any kind of energy, be sure that you're doing it through neutrality. You do not want to carry any polarity regarding anything in this eclipse energy, because you're going to end up creating the same type of energy in another relationship to still play that out. Unless you go in and transmute whatever it is within you that creates the polarity. Crucial point within eclipse energies, because this is when we're literally in the portal. We're asking Spirit to relieve us from things and places and people and what have you that no longer fit with us, with our resonant frequency. Again, everything's a frequency, depending on where you're at. If you have shifted your frequency, you're going to create the reality based on the frequency. I know this has been a lot of information today. There's 14 people logged on. Thank you all. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm at 9:40. We've been talking for over an hour. I've been talking an hour and a half. But this has been a lot of powerful stuff. Some of it's been repetitive for some of you, and yet Spirit has said every single part of this has had necessity, just to remind us how powerful this portal is. Where you place your attention, so goes your reality and creation. It's a really big deal. And yeah. So, okay, is there anything else that needs to be shared here? I think we've gone through the bulk of this level of awareness. The other part, Spirit also wants to take us into is we always have our own awareness within the box of where we are, within our wherever we're at in physicality on the planet, the groups of soul contracts we're involved in through business, relationships, whatever. But Spirit's constantly taking me into more cosmic awareness, knowing that there's no separation between us and any other being, any other place on the planet, there's no separation. And that's just the earth. There's also no separation between us and the planets. There's no separation between us and the cosmos, this galaxy. There's no separation between us within the universes. It's one of the reasons why certain humans have been very drawn to go into deep science exploration. It's why some people go into deep space exploration. I mean, think about all of the just vast discoveries and things that have come forth in the last, decades, even the last 10 years, the things we've become aware of as humans that exist out there. It happens through science, but a lot of it is through the quantum field. And again, a lot of it comes because a single individual human had something somewhere in them that God wanted to express and wanted them alone to go find. That person was supposed to find out about the Higgs and Boson particle with, the Hadron Collider. This person was supposed to, go more into the microbiome of the gut. This person was supposed to go into exploration of deep sea marine life off the coast of Chile or whatever. You've got all of these vast levels of human expression that each person has gone through, and yet we're so stuck in our own boxes of the trauma drama that we don't look to the external world of the vastness. We don't look at the totality of God, because all of that is God. There's no separation. So imagine if we were to continually, we're being invited to always look at the vastness of how God expresses itself through humanity, but also cosmically. So imagine what that would feel like to you. And I'm asked to bring this to you in this eclipse window because it's the eclipse window. So it's like we can talk about all the places where we don't want to go anymore. We can talk about, the things that we don't like about the world or the politics of this or whatever. All those people are playing out their soul contracts. And here's the other part to that. People that are in those places politically or through business are there because of all of their ancestral and karmic inheritance. That's always the case. They have to play out that type of energy. So let's say that people get caught up in the false reality, the world of material world, and let's say we have a huge financial shift and crash. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't want to invite that to happen. But I'm saying, let's say that people in past lives were so immersed with creating in the material world, but never shared with anybody else. And this has been allowed to happen and happen and happen. No one seems to have any accountability anymore. What if during this come to Jesus session and time we're going through between now and next year, what if some of those individuals, and again, if this were to happen, it's their choice, what if they have to go through the extreme loss of their huge billion and trillion dollar empires? What if certain souls came here to experience vast amounts of polarity? And I've mentioned this before with a couple of people, but like Michael Jackson came to embody this really deep, youth. He went into music. He was so talented, and yet he got taken so far down the little primrose path of Hollywood. He changed his face. He changed his image. He sold himself to the dark. He got all this money, and when you look at, the life path, he had the high of the high and he had the low of the lows. Same thing for Princess Diana. Same thing for Elvis Presley. When you look at people that really lived out, Whitney Houston had great talent, and yet the industry took them over. And you always wonder, too, again, free will choice, at what point do you decide to sell your soul for a dollar bill? And I think everyone is going to be taken into that as a reflection in the next, I think probably 18 months, especially on a core level. It's always true, but as you observe the disintegration of the world of form in the old way it is, don't go into it with fear, because you don't want to go into fear-based creation reality. Allow things to fall apart and know that we're rebuilding something that can be built on actual true reality, because so much of what we see is built on a false reality. It's built on false financial. It's built on false medical. It's built on false food. So much of our world is false. And we're invited to just stay in our hearts and create from that space. Okay, I'm tired. That's enough. So we're going to – I'm just telling Spirit that's about all I can – phew, I'm exhausted. So I know you all have to be exhausted. This has been almost – we're coming up on 2 hours shortly. And I do want to take us into a deep, quick meditation. I probably won't, I don't know how long it'll go. It will be however long it goes. I can never place a value on these things. I guess this will be the longest call that we've done so far. But again, I mean, the call really is indicative of how vast the energy is for this eclipse portal. And it really is a big deal. And I know I've said that before with other times, but I think if you look at the external world, you see everything happening, we really are in unprecedented times. And if you go through and, hear where people are with these things. And of course, here's the other part, and this is really important too, so I'll share this. Depending on who you read as an astrologer, they're giving you their presentation based on their own conditioning by the astrologers that taught them, by whoever it is that they have read and things they have taken on as a belief system with regards to what the astrological configurations mean. And we have to also ask ourselves, when someone presents in that way, are they presenting their interpretation of the astrology through any type of limitation? Spirit takes me into vast limitation or observation of limitation. I also think that we're here to rewrite the way astrology works. Oh, and the other part, I mentioned this the last time, but this is a big one. I can't believe I let this one go from the astrological. And I won't spend the time on it I spent in the last call, but you can go to the last call and listen in on it if you want to know more about this, because I went in depth about this. Black Moon Lilith is going back and forth in between Libra and Scorpio. Scorpio is all the lies, it's deceits, individually and collectively. That happens this whole year and into the beginning of next year. It is no coincidence that Lilith is going through Scorpio. Lilith is it's that dark, repressed divine feminine. Lilith is pissed. I think Lilith is going to take people to their core. Lilith is not discussed hugely with a lot of astrologers. I think Lilith is one of the most underrated aspects of astrology. But I've charted Lilith, and it's this big swath back and forth, and she is aspecting in such a way. Some of it's positive, but no matter what it is, she's unearthing the secrets of everything. Doesn't matter, individual or collective. And that's why I really think that this year a lot of people's psyches are going to be fractured when we have so much truth coming out. So we're going to see how that plays out. And again, I'm not going to project the value and tell you where to go with all this. If there's anything that's ever awakened in you to go do a deep dive research, I encourage people to do the research. I don't feel like it's my place to spoon feed people. I learned for over the last 20 years by going and digging. Just click on this, go dig. If you feel like you've got, something you want to know more about, it's all on the internet. Go look. Also use discernment in what you read and what you choose to believe. But also know that if you've got, thousands and thousands of people that have discussed it and are commenting, if most people are in the same place about it, where there's smoke, there's some fire. But again, here's the biggest truth of this whole thing. Is it eternal truth or is it a momentary truth? Momentary truth can come in and it will absolutely serve a purpose because it will be there for awakening. It does not mean it's an eternal truth. A lot of what's happening now is momentary truth that's just allowing us to assist on the awakening process. So, and don't get caught up in any stories. I don't care what the topic is. I don't care who you're talking to. Don't get caught up in anyone else's stories. The biggest part to this whole shift that we're doing is about taking our own power. And part of taking our own power is deciding what we're going to agree within our own heart and soul is something necessary to observe or not observe. And I think that's the biggest test that we're all going to go through. I think is what is something that we have to attend and what's something we don't have to attend. So, all right. On that note, I'm going to get myself comfortable here and move to the couch so we can go into the deep meditation and really do core cleansing and cleaning out. And this happens really pretty quickly now. That last call, I was floored how many people, even after I officially ended the call, I invited everybody to stay on the call just to keep the energy there. And over half of you were on the call for another 20 or 30 minutes. It was amazing. I don't know how deeply y'all are going into sleep, or if I'm just taking you into deep theta states. I mean, obviously we're going into the beta and thetas because this is deeply resetting ourselves on a cellular level, on the atomic and subatomic levels. And again, it's not me doing it. All I'm doing is holding space. I mean, I'm just taking us where Jude used to take us. But I'm out of the way. So, I mean, spirit just goes where your soul wants to go. I'm not sure how you guys are perceiving it, how many of you really go to sleep. I have a feeling you'll go to sleep. But, and again, it's not even about the sleep. It means that you're allowing yourself to be healed on such a deep level when you allow yourself to go into that space. And that's really a wonderful testament to the work we're doing together. because you got to think about this. We're doing this as a group. So it says, it said 14 attendees, but technically, I wouldn't think about this the other day. I count as 2 because I'm logged in on the computer too. But there's really, again, 13 of us, and that's really what this has been almost the whole time. So a couple people that couldn't be here regular, we've had a couple new people on tonight. They replaced the other 2 people that couldn't be here. Again, this has constantly been a 13. There's something about 13. It is Christ consciousness, and energetically, it wants to be represented. You can't make this stuff up. There are no mistakes. So I really do appreciate every one of you that have been on tonight. Again, this is not ending the call. For those of you that are new, what I do is we all get really still. This is where I invite everybody to just, if you're in a home with other people, maybe go to a room where it's more quiet. Since I mute the call, for noise and everything. But these meditation parts have really been healing I've gotten so much feedback. They said the last one was just over the top, and it really was. So again, I'm appreciative for everybody that comes and joins us with this, but this is something we're doing together. So even though I may be articulating whatever's coming through a spirit, your soul, if you're choosing to be here, it's obviously something you've chosen to hear. So I do hope that everyone has gotten something from what has come forth, because I'm not coming from a place of with my mind and saying, I've got to talk about this and this. There's no written agenda. I have no notes. I have nothing. I do go into the chart, to talk about and discuss some of the specifics with the astrology. But as far as any of the wisdom, that's just Spirit presenting to me. And nothing gets presented that's not, agreed upon within the soul group. And I really do think that other people will benefit from hearing these, videos when I present these out, on the YouTube for, to hear later. I think there's going to be so much forward movement in that type of thing this year. So, okay, on that note, I've been going for 2 hours. We're going to go in and really just get still. And if a couple of you are newer and you haven't really done deep meditation work before, I invite you to just stay in your heart and just don't beat yourself up, if your mind doesn't want to get still. Hopefully everyone's done meditation stuff, but if you haven't, I always try to do these things with a beginner person in mind, because some people meditation doesn't come easy to. And it took me a while to get into where I could quiet my mind to go in and allow for deep healing and release. But so just let's all get really still, and we're just going to let Spirit just come right in. And the 2-hour chime. Perfect timing. So again, for some of the newer people too, but just to remind everybody, I always try to articulate with the beginning of these, just calling in all of the beings and everybody that's ever worked with us throughout the time-space continuum. I call in Mother, Father, God. And for those that may question that, I always bring in the Divine Mother, because nothing gets birthed without the Mother. The Divine Father was the patriarchic control of God and was presented in that way. But there's always a Mother, Father, God. Nothing is birthed with a male. It just doesn't happen. So Mother, Father, God, we bring in the entire archangelic kingdom. We bring in every ascended master through infinite presence. and there's been many masters over the complete existence of everything that's ever been. I bring in the 7 mighty Elohim, builders of form on the planet. I bring in the elemental kingdoms because they are the ones that take care of all of the elemental micronic parts of creation. I bring in Saint Germain and the violet flame. The violet flame is always used to go into deep transmutation. Saint Germain has always been very deep and works very deeply on that. I bring in the diamond Christ light, which is this, it's just the crystalline energy that really is coming in and permeating and doing the deep healing on all of us. And I always call him the 12th golden ray. I don't know why, but I just always have. There's something about, it's that last ray before going into the 13th. Most things come in 12s, but then you have the 13th oversoul. But I've always been taken into the 12th golden ray, so there it is. So we bring in all of these things to work with the unseen world. And when we continually work with the unseen world, I feel that we get shifted all the time. And I know many of you have written to say that you also either feel like you've never felt more rejuvenated, you feel healed, you feel shifted, you feel whatever it is you feel. And the fact that we're doing this as a group, it amplifies the healing potential. And all of this creates a frequency on the call. So it's all encoded energetically on the call. So when I transfer this to a YouTube video, the energy, the frequency is in this call. And whoever listens to this will benefit very deeply depending on where their own soul progression is. So some people, if they're deeply immersed, in a lot of the densification, they may not be far on their journey of soul progression, so they may not feel like they get as much out of it, and yet the energy really does go in. It permeates on a deep cellular level, and it goes in on the etheric level. So let's just go in and really allow the great central sun and the great central sun and the great and so on and so forth, just to come in and permeate and really clear us on the deepest level that each of our soul progressions are at in this particular moment of time. And also any particular person that happens to listen to this transmission, no matter when it's listened to, all of this is timeless. We're creating it on the March 14, 2025 Virgo full moon total eclipse. It's powerful energy, and we're using this portal consciously to go in and assist ourselves and humanity in clearing any and all distorted timelines. We're also asking for the highest potentiality to be shown to us in our own personal and collective creations. For those of you that can track the energy, feel the energy coming up from the first chakra and going all the way up and just blowing open the whole chakra system, all the way through the crown. And you feel the energy of the toroidal field as it goes in and out of the crown and back down and around and in through the feet and then up through the sacral chakra again. Many of you will experience this as a tingling sensation. You'll feel the energy also go down through the extremities, through your arms, into your hands, through your legs, and into your feet. Like right now, they're pulsing down through. And if you don't experience it in that way, that's okay too. Again, everyone will have their own unique experience of this. And I really do appreciate any feedback that y'all, you do share to give me after each of the calls, because it really lets me know that on what levels it's working with and accessing your soul progressions. Feedback is always wonderful and very appreciated, and but it also lets me know the capacity to where each of you are in your own awareness and how to track the energy and to work with it. So imagine that what we're doing is we're allowing Spirit to go into the totality of everything, of every expression that we've ever been throughout all of the existence of humanity. Again, there are some souls that have come here time and time and time again for millennia, and some souls have come here maybe just once or twice just to experience the human expression. Again, we live in an infinite universe. There is no experience that's either better than or less than any other experience ever. Many experiences are certainly more challenging than others depending on the capacity of someone to release themselves to be healed. But we really are coming into an unprecedented moment of divine healing individually and collectively for the human experience. Feel the level of all of the clearing that's happening for you within the dantian, within your stomach area. This is where we carry all of the emotional trauma. This is where we're really allowing all of the adamantine particles to really come in and clear out the emotional baggage, to realign us with the etheric blueprint. Many of you will perceive a lightning within your dantian, within all of the stomach area, within all of the accumulation. And this isn't just this lifetime. We are clearing out on core atomic, subatomic levels all of the baggage that you've ever carried through the emotional body. All of the shock of all of the different lifetimes you've experienced. Going all the way back to Atlantis, Lemuria, the Maya, the Aztecs, the the Renaissance periods, every single lifetime that's ever been experienced from the beginning of the atom-cadmium body. Just feel all of that dissolving. Feel all of that moving on from there and clearing out also in the second chakra, the sacral chakra, the sexual and creative power center. Feel it also clearing down in the first chakra, the primal I am presence, how you ground yourself here on the earth. All of that's being cleared out to allow you to know that you can be here now. I am. All of that energy is going down through the legs and the extremities to clear so that you can stand on your own 2 feet in every single circumstance that you ever go into. From here on, the old you will no longer stand on any type of distortion. You will only stand in your own power in your deepest and highest integrity of any given moment of time. We're going into a level of embodiment right now during this first beginning eclipse. We're activating the highest capacity of the atom-cadmium body within ourselves and any other person that listens to this call. And all of that just depends on your own capacity to release yourself from all of your past miscreated thought forms and distortions. We all have them. We all come in with them. But we also all have the capacity to release them immediately. It does not have to take time. Now let's move all of that up into the fourth chakra. You're now into the mid-chest level. You're in the heart. Feel this as Saint Germain and the violet flame pierce your heart so you can transform to the deepest level of healing that you've ever gone through or ever dreamed of going through within this time-space continuum. Many of you will feel just waves undulating out from your heart center, out through the cosmos. With this level of heart opening, you're allowing a clearing like you've never dreamed possible of things that you've carried within your heart that should have never been carried there. Not just in this lifetime, but things that you've carried for millennia. You're allowing things that you carried from Atlantis, from Lemuria, from all of the other time frames. You're allowing all of that to be released and healed because it's no longer pertinent to who you are. Feel the violet flame radiating throughout your heart center. All of that comes from the great central sun and the great, and so on and so forth. All the way back through eternity. It is no mistake that we are having our hearts completely taken through the violet flame on this particular eclipse. And let that violet flame continue on up into the throat chakra. Allow this to clear out every single misspoken word that you've ever uttered through your entire existence through human presence. Feel into how powerful that is. Imagine what's being cleared when you articulate such a thing to yourself. Every distorted word or every miscreated thought form that you've ever articulated into existence. What if you're working with Mother, Father, God, and all of the company of heaven that we've just talked about, and you're clearing all of that out of your throat chakra? Do you feel how much lighter your throat feels? Can you feel the fire of purification, not necessarily coming from a place of discomfort, but from a place of soothing, just a burning off of all of the false reality that got miscreated? This does not have to be a difficult process or journey. We are all receiving the highest amount of grace with regards to this purification process. Feel that moving up to the Spiritu Sancti. That's the high throat chakra. That is your capacity to articulate as presence. Your highest aspect as presence, as God presence. That's above your throat chakra, kind of behind your nose and your sinuses. Many of you will feel this energy right there in that particular spot. If you don't feel it, you'll perceive it and you'll know it's there. Again, everyone will experience this in a very unique way, depending on the progression of your soul and the level of clearing work you've done up to this point. Many of you will feel like this clears out your sinuses. And indeed, many ways it is. And all the while, this energy is still deeply interactive with all of the lower chakras. We're bringing everything that's been out of alignment back into its perfection. This is also working with your eyes. If you've had problems with your eyes, if you feel like you've had more blurry vision, if you felt like you've had distortion in seeing the world, all of this energy is being asked to go in and assist with our eyesight, but also the ears. If we have failed to hear certain things within our lives, we're asking to be given the grace of pure clarity, clairaudience, clear hearing, clear seeing, clear speaking. All the clarities. Many of you will perceive that your ears are shifting at this very moment. You'll feel the subtle energy fields coming in, and literally you'll feel like that you're having your hearing just shifted and replaced with something totally different. The same will be true for your eyes. This may not necessarily clear up the 3D vision. That could happen over time depending on where you are in soul progression. It may also mean that as we have technological advances that come forth, that those are some things that can be cleared up with the technological quantum healing work that people are slowly unveiling. Again, all of this work is working with those main senses here in the head. Let's go into the third eye. It's the omnipotence, the knowing. This is the higher mind of God. As we allow ourselves to go in and we allow for the complete dissolution of the old mind, the little me, the egoic self. And we allow ourselves to know ourselves through the highest aspect of Mother, Father, God as an expression. And it comes through an integrated mind, integrated through the cosmic heart of God. And you'll feel the energy move between your third eye and a recalibration of all of the senses of your eyes and your ears and your throat, all the way down through your cosmic heart. All of that is linking into the Dantian, which is your emotional center. The emotional center will be always in congruence with the cosmic heart. All of that will be in congruence to your sacral chakra. That's your creative center, your divine human creation. It will also activate your highest potential through sexual expression, whatever that looks like for you. That does not necessarily mean you'll be going and having sex with this and that and whatever else. Sexual expression is also, it's a divine expression. Any human being can sit and go into cosmic bliss through orgasmic expression with Mother, Father, God at any point of time. You do not have to go through sexual expression with just another human being. You are complete when your body is brought into complete balance with the yin and yang energies, the divine masculine and divine feminine energies within yourself. You can go into cosmic orgasmic experience with Mother, Father, God. If you manifest a partner in which you can experience the highest sexual expression in that way, then your soul will do that. Many souls come here and do not choose to do that. They choose to just go through that expression through presence. And you can stay in those high orgasmic states for hours at a time. This is one thing that even I do. I was taken into this the last several years. Judith used to go into these states all the time. All we're doing is rewiring the electromagnetic aspects of who we are and the brain and how we perceive reality. But this is the natural state. It's the orgasmic state, the ecstatic state. Lower forms of being and consciousness have distorted it for not so nice creations. And we're grounding all of this into the first chakra. This is your primal I am presence. This is what allows you to be here. Many of you will have been able to track all of those movements depending on your capacity to perceive yourselves internally. While all of that was happening, many of you probably also noticed the crown chakra was coming completely open. We did not go into the crown chakra as a separation. Once we aligned all the other chakras, the crown chakra opened naturally like the lotus. Many of you have been in this state at different points, either through meditation work or workshops, or you've gone in and out. But this is going to be a much more full integration. Many of you will be taken into a deep ecstatic state just through presence, depending on your capacity to have gone through and done transcendental meditation in your past years. Feel the level of the pristine awareness that you are now being taken into. You can feel the vibratory shift and the level of healing on the atomic and subatomic levels just by realigning all of these energy centers within yourself. At some point, imagine that even you could be articulating all of these very same things in return to healing everyone else, other people within your own life path. There's no separation between you and anything you're hearing right now. Go into deep cosmic awareness with all of the chakras above your crown chakra in your head. Those chakras go up to the 12 chakras, but they go even way higher than that. We won't go into each of them as individual knowing in today's healing. But also know that going out through your feet, you're going deeply and grounding into the earth. You're embodying yourself in your highest potentiality as human on the earth, in the Adam Kadmon body. The more you can stay in pure divine awareness, the higher your potentialities are for creation within this very potent eclipse portal. We're all consciously working with all of the planetary energies to create our highest potentialities. This is where we're taking our power. Not power over, but our presence. This is where we absolutely have as our divine birthright to be released from all lower forms of creation, from every single person we've ever known throughout our entire human existence. It does not mean you can't be there for someone else in your life. It does mean that you will create healthy boundaries. Again, there's no separation, while at the same time, everything's a frequency. It is our divine birthright that we can ask for the highest potentialities of creation and to allow other ones to fall away. These are very powerful energies as I have very fast accelerating winds outside. We're under a tornado warning again. I think that happened on another call. I don't think a tornado is going to come, but it's highly windy. And again, that's the type of energy that we're working with right now. It's shocking energy. It's revelatory energy. It's fast-moving energy. All of these things are necessary to take us into this next level of creation. Your toroidal field, imagine the loops that are going in and out, and the directions go both ways. They go in your crown, come up and loop back down, and loop up then in through your feet and up through the sacral chakra. That's your sacrum. And those energies are 360 degrees all the way around you, just like the earth. There is no separation between you and the earth. Doesn't this almost feel otherworldly? And yet we're grounding it here in this presence. And from this place of wholeness, let us go in and ask for divine healing in every single aspect of our lives. Let us ask to be released from, and let's also release every other human or any other being that we've ever had contact with throughout all of our time-space continuum. Let's ask to be released from every distortion and every miscreation. We will release them from the burdens while also asking for release for ourselves. Throughout our entire existence. What a powerful prayer to put into the world. As we do that, we also ask to be released from any of that being carried as a distortion within the cellular memory of our mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual aspects of self. We ask to be released of any of the blockages, energy blockages that have accumulated over lifetimes, over our ancestral and genetic inheritance. We can also ask that that be cleared for the totality of capacity for all of the soul contracts within all of our soul groups, whether through our familial soul groups, our soul groups within our cities, states, countries, all the way through infinite awareness and expression. What if we ask for, on behalf of ourselves and every other human being that's ever existed, to just be taken back to a 0 point? According to each person's soul contract, of course. We never want to take away something from someone's soul experience and expression that they need to go through on their hero's journey. But we can ask on behalf of ourselves and them up to the point that they can allow, and that particular soul can allow, for that level of divine grace to happen within their lives. We certainly are all on the hero's journey individually. At the same time, we still are very powerful creators and can also ask based on what the other soul will allow for. Imagine that's the best of both worlds. You ask for the highest capacity of healing for others up to the point where it would not interfere with the soul contract. Because all soul contracts come here to learn. And many souls come here to go through deep death and destruction because it's what the soul chose. Part of it's to clear out past life karma and their genetic and ancestral inheritance. So, of course, we don't want to infringe on any of that. We don't know what we don't know. But it certainly does not hurt to ask for the highest expression, does it not? We can also request that this be extended out specifically to all of our family and friends and everyone we come in contact with all the time. These are people in our core soul groups. Again, without placing any specific agenda. We allow presence. We allow Mother, Father, God to go through and do that and to extend the grace. We can also ask it for all the other large soul groups. We can also ask it on behalf of all of the miscreations of other of species and races that have come in and intermingled and hybridized themselves with human expression. The ones that have come in and breeded with us and created such deep distortion of the atom-cadmium body and all of the lower creations of human. Do you ever imagine that some of the other beings in other races would wish that for humans and other alien expressions? We'll just say alien for the simplicity of it's alien to the person. And yet there's no separation. Imagine if there's no separation of humans, that there's also no separation between us and all of the other beings throughout the cosmos. Some people prefer to stay in denial that there's other forms of expression of Mother, Father, God other than human. If that feels right to you, that's where you will be. If you look at the human expression and you think we're in the highest potentiality of the expression of God through the cosmos, then ask yourself, is that really true? Or are there other species and races that are here in expression of a much more balanced energy field, that don't have the vast levels of expression that humans have? It gets to be really muddy and really cloudy when we start to go into asking ourselves, how vast is creation? The easiest thing is to say, asking for peace for every single aspect that is presenting itself as an aspect of God in any shape, form, or fashion, including but not limited to all of the anti-Christic beings that are here as anti-God events. All of the aspects of the shadow. We did this on one of the other calls, but let's also do this one. Let's ask that presence take us out into the cosmos, out into the universe and other universes, wherever's necessary. Take our awareness out to do any aspect of soul retrieval that needs to be done on this immediate auspicious occasion of this particular eclipse. It's a Virgo eclipse. It's a very detailed eclipse. So any place where we have not been successful in complete soul retrieval, may we ask that every aspect of our soul be brought back into unity consciousness within ourselves, no matter where it's at in cosmos. We know this has been a very long journey tonight for this call, and we certainly appreciate everyone that has come forth and chosen to participate. We hope that you have had a deep experiential healing process with all of this journey. And we certainly hope that this is going to invite you and take you into your highest potentiality of creation during this eclipse portal. We also did this for the eclipse last year in the spring. We did a midpoint, alpha omega point of the eclipse. That would put this on March 22nd, which will be, it'll be before the next eclipse, but it'll be a midpoint, which would let us go in and do this work. Let me see here. Where's my calendar? The 22nd will be next Saturday. So let's plan to do this like we did last year, Spirit's prompting, an alpha mega point. We won't necessarily have to speak as much, but we can certainly go in and do a deep additional clearing and just to do some more energy work that's going to allow us to assist in creating our new realities. We'll do this again at 8 o'clock on the 22nd. I'll send out an email too. And yes, this has been a really powerful call. I never imagined, and again, I have no preconceived notion where these things will go, but again, as usual, you're invited to stay in this energy as long as you can. I know it's going to be late for many of you. It's 10:50 here in Central. So if you're on the East Coast, you're at almost midnight. Pacific Coast, you're only at 8:50, so it's not as bad. But you're invited to stay in this energy field, though, as long as you can hold the energy, because it's changing who you are on the atomic and subatomic level. I know that it may not necessarily be a time when you can do that, but we're going to allow the energy field to stay open, and I won't stop recording the energy of the call for a bit. I mean, when several drop off, then I may go ahead and close the call down, but I'm going to leave this because it's a wonderfully deep healing energy. And I want to, as long as this frequency is here, I'll go ahead and keep the call for a bit. So again, stay in this space and just allow the healing to take place on the deepest levels of your being. And as always, I'm so appreciative that we've all been able to come together for the call. And I think we've only had one person that just left maybe 5 minutes ago. Otherwise, everyone stayed the whole call. I'm amazed and deep gratitude. It actually shows as 13, but I'm there twice because of the online. But that 13 is still there. So thank you so much. And Om Shanti to all of you. And many blessings and infinite love for all of us in these new creations in this eclipse window and taking us into our new realities.